Bridget Spencer stared at the faded medical file on her desk as if it held the missing piece of a puzzle too dangerous to assemble, but assemble it she would. For weeks, she had sensed a hidden hand guiding her brother Liam's every falter. The inexplicable seizures, the agonizing headaches, the haunting visions of weakness masquerading as strength. When she finally cracked the code, she discovered a prescription pad scrawled with her mother's name, Dr. Grace Buckingham. An order for a cocktail of drugs known to produce symptoms eerily similar to those of a brain tumor. The handwriting matched Grace's distinctive loops and sharp points. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she realized that her brother's illness had been orchestrated, month after month, by the one person he trusted most. Grace's motives remained murky, but the proof lay plain. Liam had been drugged to appear gravely ill, his reputation as a reliable and vibrant heir to Spencer Publications slipping through his pale, trembling fingers. As Bridget absorbed the truth, every memory twisted into something sinister. Liam's tear-streaked confession to Steffi in the park, his desperate calls to his parents, his prolonged disappearance from the fashion world. Each moment bore the shadow of Grace's prescription. Rage and sorrow warred within Bridget. Rage at her mother's betrayal and sorrow for her brother's needless suffering. She knew that revealing this scandal would shatter two families, threaten loyalties, and ignite headlines in both fashion and media. Yet, she could not bury this atrocity in silence. The world had to know that Liam Spencer's brain tumor had been a fiction, a cruel hoax facilitated by the very blood that bound them. Meanwhile, Steffi Forrester paced the plush corridors of Forrester Creations, her mind whirling from overheard fragments and her burning desire to protect her own legacy. She'd been in the wings when Bridget cornered Grace at the clinic, overhearing the tremulous exchange that laid bare the prescription scandal. Steffi saw an opportunity shimmering through the chaos. If this story broke at her company's next press conference, she could shift the narrative spotlight away from Forrester's recent design missteps and onto the Spencers' darkest family secret. She imagined the flash of cameras, the gasp from reporters, the ripple of shock through every power lunch and boardroom lunch table. Forrester Creations would not only recapture the fashion world's attention, but also cast its chief rival, Spencer Publishing, into a scandal so deep it might never recover. On the morning of the press event, Los Angeles buzzed with anticipation. Journalists, bloggers, and paparazzi clustered around the grand ballroom of the Forrester headquarters, their smartphones poised, their questions preloaded. The stage behind the podium was bathed in Forrester's signature red spotlight, the company logo emblazoned on banners that fluttered like the wings of a phoenix ready to rise from the ashes of scandal. Steffi strode onto the stage. Slender, impeccable in a sharply tailored suit, her blonde hair swept back to reveal eyes that glinted with steel, and greeted the crowd with a poised smile. The photographers clicked wildly as she raised a hand for silence. At that moment, Bridget slipped silently through the back entrance, Grace at her heels, despair for her brother etched into every line of her face. Steffi lifted the microphone and spoke in measured, confident tones about Forrester Creations' upcoming line, hinting at revolutionary designs and collaborations. Reporters leaned forward, pens scratching. Then, just as she promised a sneak peek of prototypes, Steffi paused. She allowed the hush to stretch into uneasy anticipation. "Before we continue," she said, voice cool as ice, "I have an important announcement that concerns not only the fashion industry, but the integrity of public trust." A ripple of curiosity swept through the audience. Bridget stepped onto the stage, her grip on a single sheet of paper, the damning prescription record, so tight her knuckles whitened. Grace followed, trembling, her once proud facade crumbling at last under the weight of exposure. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steffi continued, turning to face Bridget, "Miss Spencer has uncovered evidence of a serious medical fraud that implicates Spencer Publications' own leadership." The room erupted into murmurs and camera flashes. Bridget raised the paper. 6 months ago, my brother Liam Spencer was diagnosed with what appeared to be a life-threatening brain tumor, she said, her voice quavering yet resolute. These prescriptions, signed by Dr. Grace Buckingham, were administered to my brother under false pretenses to induce symptoms consistent with a malignant condition. He is not sick. He was deceived. Gasps echoed as reporters scrambled for clarity. Grace, white as a sheet, stared at the paper, her lips parted but no words emerging. The ballroom descended into pandemonium. Flashbulbs popped like distant fireworks as cameras jockeyed for a better shot. A voice called out, "Why, Dr. Buckingham? What were you thinking?" Grace's eyes flicked to her daughter, still standing at the podium, her expression a mask of controlled triumph. Then Grace found her voice, a hollow whisper amplified by the microphone. I believed I was protecting my family," she stammered. "There were complications. I thought." Her words trailed into pitiful silence. Liam's name rang through the chaos and cameras swung toward the back entrance where he had just arrived, summoned by Bridget's urgent text. He pushed through clusters of stunned onlookers, his face pale, but his eyes bright with anger and humiliation. In that torrent of light and sound, two empires collided. Forrester Creations seized control of the narrative with Steffi's carefully crafted reveal, while Spencer Publications scrambled to issue a statement. At press tables, managers from both sides conferred in frantic whispers. Social media erupted. The hashtag Spencer Scandal trended within minutes, while hashtag Forrester Triumph climbed alongside it. Industry analysts speculated on the fallout. Would Spencer Publications survive this breach of trust? Could Steffi Forrester's reputation for ruthless ambition weather the backlash of orchestrating a public shaming? Would Grace Buckingham face legal consequences for medical malpractice and fraud? And what of Liam Spencer? Would he find the strength to forgive those who weaponized his health against him? By the time the last flash had faded, Steffi had reclaimed her place at the podium. Her smile returned, sharper now, the architect of a PR masterstroke. We at Forrester Creations remain committed to honesty, innovation, and the art of design, she declared as the cameras recorded every word. Tonight's events remind us that truth is the most powerful fabric in any collection. She stepped down amid resounding applause from her allies, while Bridget, Grace, and Liam stood under a storm of questions from reporters. The Spencer siblings exchanged a glance, relief, betrayal, and resolve flickering in equal measure. Before Liam raised a hand, silencing the pack. He spoke softly but firmly, "My family's pain is not for public consumption, but it is my responsibility to set the record straight. My health, my life, was manipulated for reasons I'm still uncovering. I will seek justice and accountability." As the press conference dispersed, cameras captured the final tableau. Steffi's victorious silhouette against the glowing Forrester banner and the fractured Spencer clan, bound together by scandal and the promise of retribution. In the days that followed, every fashion magazine, every cable news show, every social media feed analyzed every moment of that explosive morning. The public war between two dynasties was underway, the couture catwalk against the front page, silk against ink, ambition against betrayal. Bridget, having delivered her truth, retreated into the shadows to support her brother. Liam, galvanized by outrage, prepared to dismantle the lies brick by brick. Steffi, emboldened by her gambit, readied her next move, already planning how Forrester Creations would soar from this crisis. And Grace faced the hardest journey of all, confronting the wreckage of her own decisions and the family she had wounded most deeply. In this new era of fashion and media warfare, only one certainty remained: no one would emerge unscathed. Bill Spencer's grin was sharper than any scalpel as he surveyed the private neurology suite where the world's foremost brain specialists had just delivered their verdict, Liam Spencer's brain was flawless. Every neuron fired as it should, every synapse intact, no trace of tumor, no shadow of illness beyond the lies scribbled on Grace Buckingham's prescription pads. Bill had orchestrated the most thorough scans money could buy, convinced that Grace's alleged diagnosis was nothing more than medical prestidigitation. And now, standing with Liam at his side, his son's gratitude and vindication mingling with a hunger for retribution, Bill felt the intoxicating rush of victory. Yet he knew better than to let that euphoria settle into complacency. Soap opera battles were never won by a single blow. They were tactical campaigns, chess games waged in the corridors of power, under the glitter of camera flashes and the hum of gossip mills. If Grace and her accomplice, Reese Buckingham, thought they could manipulate Liam's health to destroy the Spencer legacy, then Bill Spencer would give them a stage grand enough for their downfall, a theater of justice set in the most ironic of places, the operating room. The plan took shape in hushed strategy sessions at Spencer Publications' glass-walled boardroom. Bill, his tailored suit a contrast to the sterile white of the MRI lab, laid out the blueprint, a faux surgical procedure so elaborate that it would lure Grace and Reese out of the shadows, compel them to take the stage and confess their crimes before every member of the Spencer clan. Liam, who had tasted betrayal at the hands of the woman who was supposed to protect him, steeled himself. They would use the oldest trick in the playbook, hope, and weaponize it. The press would be invited under the pretense of covering Liam's critical operation, the dramatic climax of his supposed battle with a phantom tumor. At the center of the hospital's pristine operating theater, surrounded by cameras disguised as medical monitors, Grace and Reese would be forced to reveal the extent of their deception. The faux surgery would be a trap, a surgical sting, with Liam's fate dangling above them like a guillotine. On the morning of the staged operation, the tension was palpable. News crews lined the corridors, tripods and lenses aimed at the swinging doors of the operating suite. Speculation raged. Would Liam survive? Would this be the final chapter in a family tragedy? Bill and Liam arrived in matching navy scrubs, their faces composed, their hearts drumming a battle rhythm. In the observation gallery sat the rest of the Spencer family, Brooke with her habitual concern etched deep into her brow, Wyatt trembling with brotherly worry, and even Steffi Forrester, who had once used Liam's illness for her own ends, now seated as a silent witness to this spectacle of truth. Grace Buckingham paced the anteroom, her white coat pristine, but her composure unraveling. Reese hovered beside her, a lifeline of calm in her storm of fear, whispering reassurances that sounded hollow even to his own ears. As the surgical team wheeled Liam onto the raised table, reporters murmured into microphones, broadcasting live to the world. Bill signaled the chief surgeon, his man in on the ruse, and the lights above the operating table swung into a dramatic glare. This was no ordinary surgery, it was a stage set for betrayal's unmasking. The anesthesiologist, instructed to simulate a consultation, bent over Liam, murmuring about critical vitals and unexpected complications, while hidden crew members ensured every reaction was captured. Grace followed the team into the sterile wonderland of gleaming steel and gauze, her pulse hammering as she braced for the moment she believed would be her crowning achievement, proving her brilliance by saving her son's life. But as the lights focused on the surgical field, Bill's voice, calm and measured, crackled over the intercom. Begin procedure. The room hushed to a reverent silence. Grace, gloved and gowned, took her place at the operating table, Reese looming behind her. Physicians moved with mechanical precision, cutting into nothingness, because there was no tumor to excise. A hushed gasp slipped from Grace as she peered into the wound that held only healthy brain tissue. She exchanged a frantic look with Reese, whose face drained of color. In that moment, the trap sprang. A spotlight snapped on, illuminating every stunned face in the gallery. Bill's recorded voice echoed through the speakers. Grace Buckingham, Reese Buckingham, you have perpetrated a medical fraud of the highest order, endangering the life of Liam Spencer and betraying the trust of everyone in this room. You are hereby accused of medical malpractice, conspiracy to commit fraud, and endangering the welfare of a minor. Cameras pivoted, capturing Grace's hand trembling midair and Reese's eyes darting with panic. The hospital's security detail, positioned among the photographers, stepped forward to place cuffs on the stunned pair, their white coats a shameful uniform. Pandemonium erupted. Brooke's hand shot to her mouth in horror. Wyatt's chair tipped backward as he leapt to his feet. Steffi's jaw clenched as she realized the grandeur of Bill's gambit. Reporters screamed questions into their microphones. Is this real? Are they arresting Grace Buckingham? What about her license? Bill strode into the gallery, Liam at his side, both men exuding the controlled power of victors. I promise the truth, Bill announced, his voice carrying through every broadcast feed, and the truth is that Liam Spencer's suffering was a manufactured spectacle. Grace Buckingham used her medical credentials to forge my son's diagnosis, to manipulate our family, and to grasp at power through peril. Today, justice begins. The flashing bulbs recorded Grace's tears, Reese's silent shame, and the Spencers' mingled relief and lingering pain. Liam looked out at the sea of cameras, his voice stronger than it had been in months. This family nearly lost me not to disease, but to deceit. My gratitude goes to the experts who saw through the lies, and to my father, whose strategy has spared me further harm. But make no mistake, those responsible will answer for every moment of agony they caused. His words reverberated like a verdict pronounced by fate itself. As hospital guards led Grace and Reese away, specters of their defeat, Bill turned to his son, placing a heavy hand on Liam's shoulder. You're my son, he said quietly, and you deserved better than this. Tears shimmered in Liam's eyes, not of weakness, but of a catharsis earned through suffering. Around them, the Spencer family closed in, a united front reborn from the ashes of betrayal. In that operatic scene, metal clinking, cameras whirring, the snapping of cuffs, a new era dawned. Bill's ruthless stratagem had exposed his enemies on the battlefield of public opinion and laid bare the rot at the heart of a supposed savior. Now the headlines would scream of medical malfeasance instead of Spencer weakness. For Bill Spencer, the war was far from over. Yet today, in the operating theater turned theater of justice, he had delivered his most devastating blow. As the cameras panned away to rolling coverage of the arrests and the network pundits began dissecting every angle, one thing was undeniable. The Spencer name stood unbroken, tempered by betrayal, and ready to reclaim its place at the pinnacle of power. And somewhere in the wings, a storm of legal battles and personal reckonings was just beginning, because in the world of fashion and media empires, the scalpel can cut both ways, and only those who wield it with unflinching resolve survive.